Weather for Weather Geeks time. It's the Thursday evening edition. I promise I'm done participating in WFMJ sponsored golf outings. I had 2 this week. That's why I've been off a couple of times this week. But those are over with, so Weather Geeks kind of back to its usual appearances each time this evening here on my weather blog and on WFMJ.com/weather. You can also watch on our Storm Tracker 21 weather app if you have not taken advantage of that just yet. All right, speaking of taking advantage of the pattern, our forecasts have been on the money lately. We are up to 11 in a row, and we only missed 1 day late last month, or else our streak would actually be up in the upper 20s. So we've hit something like 27 in the last 28 days or something. So when I say hit or accurate, we're talking within 2 degrees. That's the standard in which we hold ourselves. And for the calendar year so far, we're at 72%. I'd really like that number to be closer to 80, but we did take a few lumps in April and early May. But things have been a lot better lately. The weather today was a lot better. It was so windy and chilly yesterday, especially in the morning. It really felt like October. But today, while it was still below average, it was a lot nicer outside. 69, the high today in Youngstown. Cool 65 in Erie, but we reached the mid-70s down closer to I-70. Always cool to check out these high-resolution satellite pictures from a low-orbiting satellite of Northeast Ohio and Northwest PA. This, of course, covers Lake Erie as well. I read today that the algae bloom on western Lake Erie should be less significant than the last couple of years. Certainly good news for boaters, people who use that end of Lake Erie, and that end of Lake Erie, of course, produces some of the drinking water out of Northwest Ohio, so residents there in for some good news in terms of the algae bloom this year. All right, the dew point's way down for this time of the year. You know, we're getting into meteorological summer now, and it can be really muggy at this time of the year, but the air mass is very dry. Dew points today were in the 30s a lot of the time. We've creeped up to 43 when I recorded this at 7:13. But dew points are very low for this time of the year locally. That's going to change, though. Look at all the soupy air out across the middle of the country this evening with 70-plus dew points around the Mississippi River and points west, and this is going to slowly start creeping east, this higher moisture content air. I think dew points will get into the, I breezed by kind of fast there, but they will get into the 60s and maybe even 70 on Saturday, and then look what happens by Sunday. Another refreshing Canadian air mass comes down, and while Sunday will not be as cool as today, it'll look and kind of feel like today because the air mass will be so dry. So it's going to turn soupy Friday night into Saturday, but by Sunday we're back into this relatively dry air. So what's going to happen with that increase in warmth and moisture at the start of the upcoming weekend? All right, let's talk about it. Warm front comes east tomorrow, bringing us some high clouds. Not going to be crystal clear all day tomorrow, but these will not be rain-producing clouds for us. Earliest we might see a shower or a thunderstorm is actually late tomorrow night into Saturday morning. The RPM model here is not showing anything, but with this warm front, I wouldn't be shocked if we had some raindrops and perhaps even some thunder late Friday night, first thing Saturday. As we get into Saturday afternoon, now this is an interesting situation. The atmosphere will be ripe for storms. It's going to be really hot, really humid, and really unstable. There's also going to be some turning of the winds aloft. In other words, the wind down here at the surface will be kind of out of the west. The wind upstairs in the atmosphere more out of the northwest. That's what we call wind shear. So the conditions are favorable for some thunderstorms and perhaps even some severe weather, but the modeling is not showing a lot in the way of actual storms. The ingredients are there. It's just, can we bake a cake out of those ingredients? And that's a big question mark. At this point, I've been telling people today, I wouldn't cancel your outdoor plans for Saturday. It's not going to be a washout by any stretch of the imagination, but you're going to want to stay weather aware because there could be a couple of gusty thunderstorms around if the atmosphere can start producing them. No matter what happens Saturday, Sunday turns out to be a much more comfortable day after a really scorcher of a day on Saturday. So again, rain chances Saturday, not that high for a lot of the day. As low as 20% midday, early afternoon. I think the best chance for thunderstorms overall will be later in the day. But again, I mentioned with that warm front at the start of the day Saturday, around daybreak up to 7, 8, maybe 9 a.m., there could be some showers and storms around. The threat for wet weather will continue Saturday night. Outside chance of a lingering shower early Sunday, right around daybreak, but I think by midday and afternoon, we're drying things out on Sunday, and it should turn out to be a beautiful, beautiful end of the weekend. All right, we are officially in the slight risk area from the Storm Prediction Center. Now, slight can be a deceiving word in these risks because the word slight implies, oh, no big deal. But actually, slight risk is kind of towards the middle of our risk categories here. It's not at the low end, it's certainly not at the high end, but it's somewhere in the middle. And generally speaking, as a general rule, when we're talking about a slight risk, we're talking about the possibility of scattered severe storms, meaning not everyone's going to get one, but scattered severe storms, tending to be short-lived and not necessarily all that widespread. Compare that to, say, a high risk, which we almost never see around here, much more common out in the plain states. When the SPC issues a high risk, that's an outbreak of severe storms with intense storms, the kind of risk area that oftentimes produces high-end EF4, EF5 tornadoes. Again, nothing like that here, and we almost never see high risks across eastern Ohio and western PA. Now, as far as the actual risks with Saturday's setup, again, there may not be many storms, but any storms that do get going could certainly produce some damaging winds. It's possible some large hail, and this tornado risk is a little higher than it often is in a slight risk for our area. I'm a little concerned about that wind shear. Again, I think the chance of you seeing a tornado is extremely slim, but it's not quite as low as it often is in some of these setups. So, again, just stay weather aware. Someone asked me today, should I panic? No, almost never around here should you panic because of the weather. But you should be aware of your surroundings, be aware of the situation, stay up to date with the latest forecast. Don't just check the forecast once and think you're golden. We're going to be updating things constantly, and your weather app is a great place to look, the Storm Tracker 21 app. We do need some rain. A little bit of a dry stretch in May and early June has put us officially in the dry category here on the drought monitor, particularly from Youngstown on north. Not a severe drought or anything like that, but it's getting a little dry out there, so we could actually use some raindrops. I talked a lot about the humidity on Saturday. One thing that I didn't talk much about is the actual temperature, which should spike into the upper 80s, and we've got a shot at 90 on Saturday. We haven't hit it yet this year. We got a shot, though. Our average first 90 is later in June, but certainly would not be unusual to see a 90 here in the second week of June. But that kind of heat's not going to stick around. The 10-day temperature trend is pretty benign. We go back into the mid-70s Sunday and Monday. Next week, hugging average a lot of the week. We might touch 80 a couple of times next week, but, again, averages are up around 77, 78 towards the end of next week. So an 80-degree day is nothing unusual at all. So kind of a one-day spike in heat and humidity next week just looks like a pretty standard issue mid-June week, temperature-wise. All right, thanks for watching tonight's Weather for Weather Geeks. I'm going to post a blog on ericwfmj.com this evening with just more in-depth explanations as to the severe weather threat. So if this video isn't enough weather geekdom for you, check out that blog showing up on my weather blog this evening, ericwfmj.com.